podcast, A Penny for Your Thoughts with me, Steve Penny. Over the coming weeks, I will be talking to some great people. I hope you enjoy listening in. Thank you. Okay, so I'm James Penny, Stephen's younger brother by about 18 months. I'm a gas fitter and currently reside in Gympie in Queensland in Australia. Another immigrant, been there for 16 years now. Married, 2 children, 2 young daughters, one of 17 and one of 13. And yeah, I work for myself, self-employed, on my own gas fitting business.
Excellent. And what prompted the move over to Australia?
Well, after a long, drawn-out, messy divorce, during that time my best friend emigrated to Australia and he went to a beautiful place called Kingscliff, which is on the New South Wales Queensland border. And my wife now, my partner at the time, Justine, booked us a holiday to come out to see Tony and his wife Claire and their young son Ben, and also to go to New Zealand and visit Justine's sister, who was living in Auckland at the time. And Justine had previously lived in Auckland. So we came out on holiday, did 2 weeks in New Zealand, and then came over to Queensland for 2 weeks and fell in love with the place. It was absolutely stunning. That time it was May. Queensland in May is probably perfect for weather. It was late 20s, sunny days, warm evenings.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, and that experience opened my eyes to the fact that, you know, you don't have to stay and live and carry on where you are. The world's your oyster, really.
It is, yeah.
So we went down the route of permanent residency via my trade. It was a long drawn out process in itself, but eventually we got there and off we went.
Excellent. So you've been there for
16 years. Yeah, 2007. Yeah. April 2007 we moved out.
Very good. And in terms of career path, I mean, obviously you know what you did and why you did it, but just talk a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Well, through school, I found school easy. I was one of those kids that I didn't really have to work at it. I didn't have to study. It was all a bit of a doddle for me. I just cruised along. Did well in my O-levels as they were at the time, and then went on to do my A-levels. And I didn't really know what path I wanted to take. So I was in 2 minds of whether to go to university or whether to go and work in the family business with our dad, which I had been doing. I'd been working with him every school holidays and weekends and whatnot, in his mechanical and plumbing business. And I think it was a lack of knowing what I really wanted to do that led me to carry on working for my dad.
Yeah.
And I felt, because I was fairly intelligent, that I would be able to make a success of working for him and then eventually take the business over and go from there. But events conspire against you at times.
They do.
And a number of, how can we put it, bad debts for our father's business. Sort of
change your plans.
Change of plans, detour on the path as you see it. And eventually I was sort of more running the business because of what had happened. And we went okay, but I didn't really feel fulfilled with that. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was something I was doing, if you know what I mean. It was...
You fell into it rather than choose.
Yeah, I didn't choose that path. I then attempted at one point to go back to university, which I did for 1 semester and then dropped out. I was doing an architecture and quantity surveying, sort of double, and then dropped back out of that and went back working.
Why did you drop out?
I think after being at work and earning money for a few years, and then going back to being a student and having no money, I found that difficult. I had a group of friends, great mates that were all working and earning and going out and doing whatever, and I was on the periphery at that point, living away back near where the uni was, and not enjoying it.
Yeah.
I suppose that break from your what you know, and
It's kind of the same with me because I started doing the degree after I finished my 2 HNDs, but it did mean giving up a lot of time at work, and I was enjoying the job I was doing at the time. So giving the work up to do the course was hard, and there was the money side of it as well. That you get used to having cash, and then when you haven't got it, it's really tough.
Yeah.
Especially when I was in my early 20s. And I was, that's the time when you go out and party a lot.
Well, that's exactly the same age as me, and having been doing that for a few years, and then I don't have any money. I've got to pay the rent.
Can't go out.
I can't go out. I've got to buy some noodles to eat.
Yep. And that's where my daughter is at the moment. Lucy, the youngest, she's studying at uni and trying to work as well, so that she's got some money. And it's hard. It is hard to do. You've got to be very dedicated and know that there's a goal at the end of it that you really want to achieve, I think, to get there.
Yeah.
And if that, certainly for me, I didn't feel like I needed the qualification because I was doing the job anyway. I regret it sometimes, but not really, because it's not stopped my career.
No.
Same for you. You've carried on with a job and a career and got your own business. So.
Yeah. So I try not to have any regrets about that. It's decisions you make at the time with the information you've got at the time, in the place you are at the time.
Yeah.
And you make those decisions. You can't regret them.
No.
If you're in full, got the full information, the full facts, you know what you're doing.
Certainly with your career, I think those decisions, you'll learn something, even if it's something that I don't want to do that anymore. You'll still learn something from the experience. Yeah. And one of the things I try and advise the younger guys that I work with is if somebody offers you an opportunity, the first thing shouldn't be saying no. You should say, I'll consider it. Because the one thing you'll regret is the thing you don't try.
Yeah.
And, if you get those opportunities, grab them with both hands because you don't know where it's going to go.
No, that's right.
I'd taken the chance to go to Dubai, would I have come to New Zealand? Would I have my own business? Don't know. Maybe not.
Well, at one point, I stepped away from working with Dad and I got offered a role. I took a number of interviews, one for a marine reinsurance company, one for ANZ Bank in the merchant banking side, and I got offered both roles. And it was the one at the reinsurance company. Our neighbour worked for the same business, and I had a chat with him, and he talked me into accepting that role rather than
Beach Avenue. Was that
in Wick Beach? Yeah, that was Eric. Yeah, lived next door. So I went to work for a company called Leslie and Godwin in the marine reinsurance side of the business, and I did that for a year, but again, not fulfilling me at all. Yeah. So I drifted out of that one again and back into working for Dad. But it was I was like a boomerang.
Kept going back.
Yeah, kept going back. So
it obviously showed that there's a connection to that type of work because you're still doing that type of work now. So it's obviously something that you're good at and enjoy doing.
Yeah, I would say not blowing your own trumpet. I am good at it. Yeah. The way my brain operates, I'm like procedures. Yeah. I like rules. Yeah. I like to follow those procedures and rules, and if their guidelines are there, there's no reason not to do the job well because you have the information, and if you follow it, the outcome should be the one desired.
Yeah, yeah.
And
if the procedure's correct.
That's right. And if the procedure isn't correct, I rewrite it.
Well, when you've got your own business, you just do as you go. Okay, right. So just moving on a little bit. So what would you say, starting with your professional life, what's been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge?
Yeah.
So whilst in Australia, I had the desire to do a bit more with my career. So I applied to work for Santos as an operator on their GLNG project, which was where they were developing coal seam gas wells, and a massive infrastructure network that went up to Gladstone, and then it's sent off in ships around the world as a liquefied natural gas. So I chose to go down that path and work out there, which was a fly-in, fly-out role. So that meant 2 weeks at a time living away from home. So for me, that was the biggest challenge, because I've got a very stable, happy home life. But the sacrifice, because of our situation, our financial situation, I had to make a sacrifice to move us forward. And that was it. So working away from a wife and 2 young daughters was...
How long did you do that for?
5 years. But the benefit, the net gain, was we saved up deposit for a house, and bought a house and got our foot back on the property ladder, which was the best thing we could do for us at that time.
Sometimes those short-term sacrifices feel like they're not worth it at the time, but when you look back on it, you realise that there was a benefit to doing it. And, and so long as you've got a strong, stable relationship, that you can make it work. I think it's harder if you're in a less stable relationship, because it gives you an excuse not to be in the relationship.
Not to be at home. That's right. I had the desire to be at home. So
that's cool. Okay, and then moving on, what would you say is your proudest achievement professionally?
Professionally, working with Santos, I was involved in the commissioning and production of the GLNG wells, and those wells were developed to be remotely operated, and basically myself and the commissioning team, and I had my back-to-back, we managed to get those wells commissioned and into production and operating correctly over a period of time. It was hard work, because it had never been done before with the setup that they were using. And I learnt a lot by being involved in the commissioning of the wells, which then I managed to understand how they operated and what was required to get them to produce at their maximum. So being involved in that project and getting those wells into production over a couple of years, I would say that was my biggest achievement. To go from having no experience in that field to being the production operator in the commissioning team in a short period of time. But I just, what's the word I'm looking for? It engaged my brain, and that was probably the first time that my brain had been fully engaged in a role, in a work role, in my career. And I loved it. It was the best move I'd ever made, because I was challenged and I stepped up to the challenge during that time.
I think that's when you learn a lot about yourself, is when you step outside your comfort zone, do something you've not done before, get tested in a way of in some way. And, I've certainly found that when I've been challenged, that's when I've learned the most about, what you're capable of, and also what your limits are. That if you don't test yourself, you don't know what your limits are, you don't know what you can achieve. So that's good on you, mate. Well done. And what about your personal life? What's your proudest achievement personally?
I'd have to say my wife and children. Without a doubt.
They will listen to this, so you better say that.
That's right. I've been well trained.
Yes.
No, without a doubt. Without Justine behind me, or not behind me, beside me, we wouldn't have made the success that we've made of emigrating. We wouldn't have brought our children up as successfully as we are. I believe we are, touch wood, because she always knows what to say and what to do, and when I need help and when I need to be left alone, and nudges me in the right direction if I'm going a little bit wayward.
Fair enough.
So yeah, without her and the kids, we wouldn't be where we are now. So
okay. Can you remember a time when you heard some information that fundamentally changed the way you look at things around you, like something that really opened your eyes to something different?
In the last year, 18 months, some of our friends do breath work, and
can you just explain a little what that is?
So it's more holistic type healing, and it's all about the mind and the body and being in tune with yourself and being present and in the moment.
Yeah.
And breath work is a breathing technique which sort of oxygenates your brain and opens up more pathways in your brain, shall we say. So you feel, how can I put it, engaged. You feel alive, more in the moment.
Okay.
So doing that...
It's a bit like meditation type.
It is a form of meditation, yes, very much so. Okay. But because, as we probably all know, we only use about 10% of our brain. This is about opening up as much as you can of that other 90%.
Yeah.
And it's been a massive insight for me when I've done this, and how it changed my outlook in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
But what I have found is that if I don't do it regularly, and I haven't been doing it regularly, but I've noticed that each time I do it, how much happier I am in myself, and how much more in control I am of myself and aware of myself. And I think, there's a lot more out there.
Yep. Being self-aware is really important.
Yeah.
If you're not aware of how you are, you don't do anything to correct things when they're going wrong.
No.
And that's, with my depression, I was unaware for a long time how bad it was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I sat down with the therapist and with Chrissy in one session that I was seeing that Chrissy told me that there were weeks when I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't present at all.
Yeah.
Because I was on a downward spiral inside my head, unable to get out of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going on.
No.
Which is really quite frightening.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. I'm autistic. So being autistic, you are not always aware of yourself and what's going on around you.
Yeah.
Because autism, people say, you're being selfish, but you're not being selfish per se, because you're not thinking, I'm ignoring them, I don't want to do that. You're just not aware of what's going on there.
Yeah.
And people then look at it that you're being selfish because you're ignoring what's happening.
You're actually just focusing on what you're
doing.
The
point of the autism is you're in a zone, you're focused on what's going on, and you're not aware of what's going on outside. And I found that doing that breath work on the occasions that I've done it, for a fair period of time after, I'm more aware of what's going on around me.
Yeah.
So
it's obviously working.
It works for me. It may not work for everybody, but I found it works for me.
Just moving on a little bit more, what would you say, or who would you say was your biggest influence in your life?
I would have to say our dad.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of time I spent with him. Yeah. Because from about 11 years old, every school holiday I'd go to work with him. I'd then, as I got a little bit older, in my sort of mid-teens, I'd be working every weekend with my dad.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest thing you learned from Dad?
Probably work ethic.
Yeah, it's bloody hard work.
Always working hard. Yeah. Always. Didn't give up. Always got it done on time.
Found a solution.
solutions focused. That's probably the biggest takeaway from it. Is not so much you don't look at the problems, you look at for the solutions and solving it. You have to get it done. So how can you get it done?
I think he's also very proud of the quality of what he did, and he wanted to do a good job all the time.
That's right.
And didn't take excuses for doing a shit job.
No.
Because
didn't take shortcuts.
No, absolutely not. No. Sometimes to his detriment, I think, that he put in too much effort sometimes. But you can't criticise somebody for wanting to do the best job they can every single time they do a job. No.
He's very proud and had good ethics and morals about what he was doing, and wouldn't step outside of that. No. Wouldn't take the easy option.
I obviously didn't have as long a working relationship as you did with Dad, but the thing that I picked up from is he was very ethical. He wanted to do the right thing all the time when it came to work, and everybody else before himself is the way he approached things.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I've learned, that if you want to be respected, you've got to treat people around you with respect. If you treat people like shit, they're going to treat you like shit, and that's probably something I've carried through, which is why I don't deal well with people who try and bully me.
No.
As in I don't put up with it, because life's too short for that crap, and you've got to treat people the way you want to be treated.
That's right.
In my view. So I think that's good. That's good. What about how do you relax and recharge your batteries? What's your go-to?
I'm a big believer in having a bit of me time.
Mm-hmm.
So that where you do things for yourself.
Yep.
And it's not that, again, people might say, well, that's selfish. But I think for your own mental health, you have to do things that you enjoy for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so for me, that's playing snooker.
Right.
That's my downtime. Mm-hmm. I go off with I'm a member of a local club in Gympie where I live. And I go there, like even during my working day, if I'm local and I have a lunch break, I'll go to the club and I'll have an hour in the club, eat my lunch, have a practice.
Yeah.
And then I play regularly every Wednesday night. And if possible, there's a Monday afternoon competition that I go in as well.
Okay. And how are you doing?
I'm doing well for me. How can I put it? I'm ranked in Queensland now. I'm up to number 11 or 12.
In Queensland?
In Queensland. And I was up to, I'm not sure where I am at the moment. I was up to about 41 in Australia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the ranking system. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm the 42nd best player. It just means I've got those points.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy
that's
that.
Good. That's very good. So, time travelling now. If you could go back to 20-year-old you, do you remember 20-year-old you?
I do.
If you could go back to 22-year-old
If you could see my face. It's a good job this is a podcast.
What would one piece of advice be to 20-year-old you, and why would you give that piece of advice?
20-year-old me, I should have stuck it at university.
Yeah.
I should have made the most of my talents that I had, because study at that time was relatively easy for me.
Yeah.
I could have got myself a decent degree and had a life that was slightly easier on my body.
Yep.
That's probably what I would say. I would have said.
What was your passion at school? What subjects was your favourite subjects?
My favourite subjects were sport.
Because I had to fight hard for every single point.
I didn't. That was the thing at school. I didn't have to try hard.
Yeah.
I found everything easy. I have probably because of the autism, I have a very good memory.
Yeah.
So once I'd read something once,
you knew it.
I knew it, and I could move on. But that also holds you back in that school environment, because way a lot of people learn is multiple repetitions of that said piece to get it to stick.
Yeah.
Whereas I've read it once and got it, and then you sort of zone out. You've done that. Not that I wasn't a child that played up, but I got bored very easily, very quickly at that time.
Cleveland's the same.
Yeah. So you need to, what we found, because our children, our daughters are both diagnosed with Asperger's or high functioning autism. That's how they learn. They read it once, they've got it, they need to move on.
Yeah.
So if I could have been diagnosed as a child and...
Well, I think the time, when we were kids, autism wasn't a thing. What it was you were a disruptive influence in the class, you were a troublemaker, you weren't a good member of the class because you were bored. Doing stuff because you were bored.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that probably would have been a lot better off now than they were at the time. Schooling
wise, definitely for me, because you can be, what we found with our kids is that they need to be stretched, they need to be challenged, because what they say is learning is like a load of peaks and troughs, but autistic people jump those troughs and just go from peak to peak. And what you need to do is get them into the trough so that they learn how to get out of it. Because while you're just jumping across the top, you're not in any difficulty.
Again, you don't learn how to cope with stuff if you're not in a position where you don't know what to do.
Yeah. And what we've found out through reading up on it a lot is that in that scenario, children that get to uni, that suddenly challenges them. And they don't know how to cope with those challenges because they've never had to.
Assisted learning to self-learning, which is a massive difference. That's the thing. I think that Lucy's really coped well with it, but I think Jonathan, my middle child, really struggled with that change from assisted learning to self-learning because he doesn't have the discipline to focus on things like that, which you need that self-discipline. You also need the ability, like you say, to cope with things when they get difficult.
That's right.
And being able to find a way around an issue.
And I suppose for me, because I not being challenged like that at school, going to work with our dad gave me another set of challenges. Because
very different things to do,
Yeah, because there were challenges that people came across, the guys that work for him came across during the working day that we had to solve. So it wasn't just straight through, a straight line. You had to...
Well, you were getting designs from people who didn't know what they were doing and trying to make them work.
Yeah, so there was always problems to solve. And my dad, I would be walking around listening to him, talking to people to solve the problem. So it showed me that you had to work at things to get the end result. Whereas in schooling, I hadn't had to work. It's, with the sports... At school, I was in every team. I found it all easy.
Well, I've got to say, one of the things I really enjoyed about high school was being referred to as James Penny's brother, which is, I'm the eldest, and my younger brother was much more popular at school and much better at school, and it's just like, oh yeah, you're James Penny's brother.
We did have a bit of sibling rivalry.
Just a bit.
Didn't we, Steve?
Just a bit. I think that's normal in any sibling relationship. You go through those points where you're fighting for attention as much as anything else, and I think we've got fairly similar personalities to that dad, which doesn't help.
No, that's the thing, it can be a clash.
Yeah, and we clashed, and let's be honest, we had a fairly lengthy period of time when we weren't talking.
That's right. That's right.
And it's only really since the first time you came over here to see us that we've been getting on again.
Yeah.
And I guess I've reflected on that quite a lot, and I think that it's really made me realise that family's not something you choose, but it's something that matters.
Yeah.
And you have to find a way to make family relationships work. If I've got one regret, it's the amount of time I lost to spend with my dad because we weren't getting on when I was back in the UK. We used to clash all the time. And I lost out on a lot of the time that you had with Dad. And I'm not jealous of the fact you did, not at all. But I just regret that I was so stubborn that I wouldn't allow myself to have more time with Dad. And because he's got an interesting life, and I've missed out on spending time with him. And but same with you, Jim. And I feel the same about Lou as well at the moment. To fix that relationship, because.
But you can't have regrets about it, Steve. Don't have regrets. But because the decisions were made and things happen, and that was the path your life took.
Yeah, I know, but it's just. I guess it's just a bit of a self-reflection. It's taught me that's more important things.
You would have liked things to have been different.
I would have liked things, and I want things to be different into the future.
But that's all you can do. You can only affect now your future and the present. That's one of those things that I've learned through that, what I've been doing with the breath work, etc., is to be more present and to be more in the moment. And one of the other things, the reason, we came over here to visit you and Chris and the kids, and a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of that was to do with Justine. Heal those, make those bridges, build those bridges, and heal that relationship. And that's what we did. So
it was good.
It's the best thing we've done, because we're both on this side of the world.
Yep, and we were barely talking to one another.
That's right. But there were circumstances around that, weren't there? See, there was a hell of a lot going on for all of us.
Yes,
back then.
Yeah, it was.
Tumultuous times.
Well, I think it's life, isn't it? That's something that I guess the world of social media distracts you from the fact that not everybody's living a perfect life, and all you see on social media is the perfect life.
That's right.
I've kind of tried to be a bit more real with the way that I do stuff on social media, and I talk about things that have gone wrong rather than all the good stuff.
That's right, because that's life.
Because that's life, exactly. I'm spent a lot of time thinking about what I'm going to do and how I can make things better. For me, but also for other people, talking about my depression and not being at all ashamed about the fact that I've got depression, because there's still such a stigma around that any kind of mental illness.
Because people see it as a sign of weakness at times, absolutely. And it's not. It's real life, and you're stronger to overcome those challenges than those people that shy away from it and act like nothing's happening.
Yeah, I think if you bury it, it hurts. A lot
of people, not just yourself.
Not just yourself.
Everyone around you.
Yeah.
And that's being in the moment and being aware, self-awareness.
Absolutely. I mean, it does present some challenges, because there are people that find it hard to talk about those issues. But what I've found is that the people that matter actually show that they care, because they'll come up to me, and it's people that I didn't expect will come up to me and say, just checking in, just seeing how you're doing. Do you want to go and have a cup of coffee? Let's have a chat. And there's no agenda behind it, just wanting to reach out and be there in the moment with somebody. And that for me is justification for being honest. And I think that honesty about yourself and about your circumstances is really important, because then you can deal with what happens.
Yeah, not everything's perfect all the time. It rarely is perfect. Yeah. There's always work to be done.
Obviously,
on yourself and on your life.
Yeah. So just going on to a slightly less serious subject. What would you say is the favourite book you've ever read? And are you reading anything you'd want to share?
My favourite book? Well, I liked the Bernard Cornwell novels.
Yeah, those are the historic ones.
Yes. So though a lot of those, if you read them about King Arthur, and were set, some of it was set around where we grew up. Mm-hmm. So they were talking about a place called Beamflot, which was actually Benfleet, so on the banks of the Thames there. And when he's describing the area, I can visualise it, because he talks about the castle up on the hill. Well, I've sat on that hill at that castle, overlooking the estuary, and you can visualise what they're talking about and the battles and all the rest of it, because you live there and you've seen it. And I found all that historical stuff very interesting and engaging, and I've always been, even as a kid at school, probably my favourite subject would have been history.
Same to me.
Because I enjoyed reading and learning about everything that had gone on in, the past.
Yeah.
I loved all the medieval stuff.
Yeah,
I found
it's kind of exciting, isn't it, when you sort of look back at, there's obviously a whole load of stuff hanging off that now, because Britain's record in the world has been a bit aggressive with other countries, shall we say. But I don't think there's it is our history. We grew up in the UK. We grew up as part of that history.
Yeah.
And denying it doesn't change it. And it's good to be engaged. I think one of the things that I've started doing recently is going through the family tree. And part of the reason for doing that is because I'm so far away from where I grew up. I wanted to find out where I came from, and did.
Yeah.
Well, didn't.
And that was that's an interesting journey. We've still
trying to work that one out. But, that having that connection to the past, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've noticed in New Zealand is that people like the Maori and also I think the Aboriginal peoples in Australia keep that connection to their past a lot better than Western people do.
Yeah.
We tend to kind of only look forwards and never look back.
Yeah.
And I think you need to do both.
Well, I think, again, that comes back to that self-awareness and what's going on, being aware of what's around you, because we can go into that tunnel of it's all about me and not thinking about what's gone on before or what's going on around you.
To where you've got to.
Whose
shoulders you're standing on.
Yeah.
And all the rest of it, I mean, that's, I had quite a good session with the psychiatrist about where I came from and looking back at, how Dad was, how his dad was, and trying to understand their circumstances. And, it kind of took me on an interesting journey in my own head, really, about thinking about those things and about the circumstances and now, how Dad grew up and wanting to find out more about, because I don't know if you do, but I don't know much about Dad's childhood.
No, he's never really...
You don't really talk about it.
Expressed that much about it.
Immediately post-war in the UK. So there would have been some real challenges around at the time.
Yeah, rations and
also
rebuilding.
His mum died when he was really young. So, there's a lot of stuff there that I'd really like to find out. And, I'm going to try and do that, and hopefully I'm going to try and record it as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to keep that kind of information available for future generations of our family.
I think sometimes for that generation, they do close it off. Yeah. It's not, never did speak about it. No. It was all
stiff upper lip
and hold it all in.
Yeah.
And it probably would benefit.
The healthiest thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now another question. If you could meet some person that you hold up as in high esteem, who would that person be? They don't have to be alive or dead, whatever, but who would it be and what would you ask them?
Who would it be? In a light-hearted manner, Arsene Wenger.
Yeah.
Why didn't he buy Ronaldo?
That's his biggest regret. Isn't it? Because he said the Arsenal ball moved too slowly. They were actually having an agreement with him, and Man United came in quicker and bought him. But otherwise, they'd have had him at Arsenal.
Yeah, that much.
Imagine the difference that would have made.
Yeah, that would have been a different path entirely, wouldn't it? But he did pretty well with what he had.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, absolutely, can't complain.
Aside of that, I don't know. I love all watching and reading about sports and current sports and stuff like that. And I think I'd love to have a conversation with Thierry Henry, because he was a bit of an idol of mine.
And mine.
And Dennis Bergkamp. Love to have those two. Ian Botham.
In his pomp.
Oh, just outstanding. Just, again, those guys.
Test series on his own.
I remember we were staying with our nan and granddad in 1981 during that test series. Botham's got the 142 not out, and then Willis destroyed Australia and took about 8 for not many.
Yeah.
I remember that very well. That was
an amazing piece of cricket.
Yeah. So those people, those are the sort of people I would like to sit down and have a chat with, and again find out a bit about their life and their upbringing.
Yeah,
I've read.
Interesting to see what got them to that point. I mean, what you hear a lot of is the people that are really good at what they do are good at it because they practice a lot. They put a lot of effort into being good. And you see people saying, "Oh, he's got a lot of talent, so he obviously doesn't have to try hard." It's never true.
No.
Usually, the talented ones are the ones that's first on the training pitch.
Well, there's that famous saying, isn't it? The more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yep.
And that's very true. I notice that in my own, like playing snooker. The more I practice, the luckier you get.
The more times it breaks for you, and the less times it breaks against you.
Right. Yeah. Because you're doing the right things at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah, again, making decisions,
Yeah.
So, on a travel front, if you were able to travel somewhere that you've never been before, where would you go?
Probably Machu Picchu and up there and see where the Incas.
Oh, right, yeah.
I've been reading up about it, or not reading, saw some documentaries about them, and I'd love to know how they built that
how
up
civilization then disappeared.
Yeah, but
I think it was the Spanish, wasn't it, that killed them off, the Incas?
I think so. But just when you look at the engineering involved in what they built,
stuff about the pyramids, about the way the stones are cut, and some of the sculptures have been done, and they're saying that they can't, with current technology, cut them as precisely.
That's right.
So how did they cut them? It's like aliens, obviously.
Again, do we know everything?
No. It's one of the things. I mean, there's that Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. That's a historical site that's something like 10 or 11,000 years old, and some of the stuff that's in that is believed to be the seat of true civilization, like teaching other people about how to farm and things like that. That they originally thought that it was through somewhere like Egypt, with the pyramids being sort of 5,000-6,000 years old, but this predates them by about 5,000 years, and there's complex stuff in there that they're now starting to think maybe civilization started even earlier than we thought, which is just starting to think, well, the planet's 4 billion years old. How many times have we had civilizations on the planet? Is it really only once?
We don't know, do we? Really?
I don't know. I'm sure there's good scientific reasons to say, that the 60 million years of the dinosaurs, or 200 million years of the dinosaurs is all there's ever been. But why couldn't there have been a series of massive meteor strikes that wiped out entire civilizations prior and destroyed all the evidence?
You don't know.
Might have been.
Might be buried at the bottom of the ocean that we've not yet to find.
Yeah, could well be. And it's it's interesting to think that, we think about us and all this crap we do to the planet and we're killing the planet. No, we're not. We're killing ourselves. The planet will still be here. The planet will be better when we've gone. Yeah. Absolutely. Within months, it'll be better. Because the stuff will start growing back where it should be, and the animals will come back doing what they should be doing, and everything will get back into balance again.
Yeah. Well, you only got to look around you and look up in the night sky and look at all those stars, and then, as we were speaking about last night, some of those stars aren't in fact stars, they're galaxies.
With billions of stars.
With billions of stars in them. And, are we the only ones floating around in this space?
Well, that's, you think about it, we're in an obscure galaxy on the edge of an obscure solar system, on the edge of an obscure galaxy, on the outside of the universe. And we think that everything revolves around us. It's just like, no chance.
Yeah.
It's pathetic of us to think that, to be honest.
We just don't have any evidence of anything else at this stage.
No, we don't. And we're not able to conceive of the size of the universe around us because it is too massive.
Well, the world's too big for some people.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Don't want to leave their own town, do they?
No.
Okay, right. Band or singer? Who's the favourite one you've ever seen, and who's one you've never seen you want to see?
The favourite one, the concert I've been to recently, the best concert I've been to in the last 30 years would be Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
I saw him at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. Yeah. It was absolutely outstanding.
He's a very talented guy for sure.
It was magnificent.
Yeah.
The show that he put on, and I loved it. And the girls loved it. Justine loved it. It was brilliant, absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
I remember going to Madstock at Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably 30 plus years ago. That concert was
Madstock.
Yeah, madness. And
madness.
It was absolutely, yeah. I loved it. We all went there as a group of mates, and it was absolutely outstanding. I can remember watching the band playing and looking at the tower blocks in the distance and seeing the windows vibrating because it was that loud. It was just fantastic. If there was somebody I wish I'd seen live, would have been Freddie Mercury, I think, and Queen. I've seen Queen with Adam Lambert.
Yeah.
Again, that was a really fantastic concert.
I got to see Freddie at the Live Magic tour at Nebworth Park.
Right.
250,000 people at that concert.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, still the best concert I've ever been to.
Yeah, as a performer, they've got that stage presence, haven't they? It just makes a difference.
We had Big Country on there and a few other bands that were really big at the time, but nobody was really listening to them. They were just sitting, mulling around, and music was in the background. But as soon as Queen came on stage, the whole crowd was buzzing.
Yeah.
Immediately.
And you see the video footage. I've seen the video footage of many of those concerts, and you just look out there, and he's got them in the palm of his hand. It's just brilliant to see.
Yeah, you see what he did at Live Aid.
Well, that's the one I'm thinking of right at this moment. And he just outstanding.
Turned that from a pretty crap event into one of the best events the world's ever shown.
Yeah, absolutely. You did.
Yeah, I mean, personalities like that, they're kind of one a generation, I think. You don't see them very often. I think Elvis was the same. Kind of a previous generation.
Just changed the course of music. They change the course of music as they go, don't they?
They change the way that music is looked at by everybody because of their strength of personality and their talent. And who would you say is in that space? Probably, Ed Sheeran's probably one of the more talented ones around at the moment. But most of the bands and singers seem to be really manufactured.
Yeah.
Here's a formula, follow the formula.
Yeah.
And you don't get that same kind of engagement, I don't think.
No, they don't. They don't, for sure.
All right, then. What's the worst concert you've ever been to?
The worst concert I've ever been to? Wow.
Have you ever walked out?
I've never walked out, no. I don't think, about the way my personality is or my brain works, I'm always hoping it's going to get better if it's that bad. And I don't want to miss out if it does get better. Yeah. I've never walked out. Is there any?
Out. Wet with Chrissy.
Did you?
That was so bad. It's just like there was no engagement with the. You might have been in a recording studio, just singing the song, no engagement with the audience, sing the next song, and then really flat. Just like you just listen to the first 25 minutes. I thought, this is shit.
Yeah.
Just walked out.
Not as a concert. I went to see a comedian recently.
Yeah.
And I'll say it was Rob Brydon.
Yeah.
And I felt it was so manufactured.
Yeah.
That it was so scripted, if you know what I mean. He didn't engage.
Yeah.
It was just, even before that section had finished, he'd moved on to the next bit, if you know what I mean. And it just didn't feel like a performance. No, it was like a script.
Yeah.
Too much of a script, if you know what I mean. And then we went and saw Jimmy Carr.
Yeah.
And he was just brilliant. He engaged with the audience, and it wasn't as scripted, if you know what I mean, because he was asking questions and then going off down that tangent, whereas the other one didn't, and it didn't engage me. So
no, I think that sort of ability to engage the audience is where you get the difference between an okay performer and a great performer. If you don't have that engagement, then you don't take it's about taking the audience on the journey, I guess, in some ways, isn't it? You're engaging with them, you're getting them to come along with you on what you're talking about and be engaged with the subject. It's like it's like anything. If you've got a good book, you can lose yourself in a book if it's a good book. If it's a bad book, you find it hard to get through a page. And it's that again, that engagement, writing in a way or speaking in a way or performing in a way that means the audience is part of it. It's the best way to get engagement, I think, isn't it? Anything else you want to share with us?
I'd like to say, I don't think... Every time I come to New Zealand, I think I could live here.
Right.
And I do wonder if that will be the case at any point in the future. I don't know at this stage.
What is it? So what is it about New Zealand that you think would make it a good place to live? The fact, other than the fact that not all the animals over here want to kill you.
There is that.
And the plants.
And the weather doesn't want to kill you either.
Well, yeah, but the ground does.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't. The ground doesn't care about you at all.
No.
They're completely irrelevant.
And I think that's like at the moment, that's the weather in Queensland. That doesn't care about you either.
It's not personal.
No. When we're going from 37, 38, 40 degrees.
To 2 metres of rain.
And then, 2 metres of rain in moments.
Yes.
I don't know. I love the scenery.
Yeah.
I love the people. I think it feels a lot more chilled than they are in other places in the world. Mm-hmm. It's just a beautiful place.
It is. Yeah. It's a place that's focused on people who want an outdoor life.
Yeah.
Very much so. There's lots of things to do outside your house. So if you're that type of person, it's fantastic. The things that I like the scenery, but myself and Chrissy really are both much more focused on historic places. Like going to old places that have been around for centuries.
Yeah.
And New Zealand doesn't have that. It's been here for a long time, and people have been here for a long time, but it hasn't got that built history,
that architecture,
and the architecture and other things that for whatever reason, Chrissy and I both really care about that. And so long term, I'm pretty certain we won't be staying in New Zealand, but I don't regret coming here. I think it's a great place to bring up a family. There's lots for the kids to do. You get a lot. I mean, like when we first got here, we went to an event in Wellington, and the Crusaders, it wasn't the Crusaders were up playing, I can't remember who it was, but the Wellington rugby team, which was pretty much all of the All Blacks at the time, were at this event, and you could just walk up to them and say hi. You couldn't do that in the UK. The All Blacks, well, the England rugby team, you could never get near them.
No.
Because they were protected by layers of security. And over here, people are so chilled that, go and talk to their normal people. Yeah. And I think that accessibility and that normality can only be healthy.
Yeah. That's the same in Australia, I have to say, with the sports people there and the celebrities there.
They're much more
accessible
open to being part of a community rather than isolating themselves in their stardom.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at what's going on in football, I think part of the issue with the young footballers is exactly that they're taken out of real life.
Yeah.
And they live in a fantasy world where they've got a bottomless bit of money and access to anything they want. And they don't know how to cope with it.
No.
And it's ruined people's careers. You look at what happened to Gaza, for God's sake. I mean, he was an amazing footballer, but he didn't know what reality was. Around him, he had people that were taking him for a ride all the time.
Yeah.
And abusing the money he had and getting him drunk and ruining his life, ending his career.
Yeah.
For somebody who was probably the best footballer of his generation in the UK to not achieve very much at all with his career. Never really won a major trophy. Didn't win the Premier League, should have won, didn't win the top division as it was at the time. Won the FA Cup, I think, a couple of times with Spurs, and that was it. That was it.
I'm pulling faces there because we were one of those semi-finals.
Yeah, I know. But, but that's the point, though, isn't it? All he achieved was a couple of FA Cups. When he went over to Italy, he achieved nothing.
No.
And he never got there on the big stage because he wasn't looked after. You look at the
so he didn't realise his full potential, basically,
basically,
because of the circumstances around him.
An England team with him at the top of his game, and a few other players that he had at the time at the top of their game, Glenn Hoddle and others that were all around at the same time. We should have been winning stuff. But an unreal world, losing that connection, not being aware of where you are and all of that stuff.
Being present. I'll say it again.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that'll do then. Well, thank you very much, Jim, for taking the time.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
It's great to talk to you and find out a little bit more about you than I knew.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know about the second stint at uni. Didn't know about that.
Well, there you go. I did do that.
Didn't know you wanted to be an architect. If ever, only briefly.
Briefly?
Yeah.
Didn't last long enough.
No. Well, thanks again.
No worries.
Good to see you. And I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to my podcast, A Penny for Your Thoughts, with me, Steve Penny. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation, and I look forward to sharing my next conversation with you in the future. Thank you.